to welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Football season is here, which means we have meaningful games, including Miami and Arizona, where the Ravens should be 2-0 before this whole thing is over with. And if you've listened to my programming at any point over the last year and a half, you know that I fell in love with a football book last year. Mark Leibovich wrote The Big Game, the NFL in Dangerous Times a year ago. It's now out on paperback. I welcome him back on in advance of not only the football season, but also the political football season, which never feels like it's out of favor. Hey, how does it feel to be back in politics this year, Mark? Take a little sabbatical to do some football. Welcome back to put your big boy britches back on, huh?
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's good to be back. I mean, I never really left politics in the NFL, unfortunately. I mean, it's a little bit inescapable these days. And, Donald Trump does sort of to sort of throw himself into the middle of every story. So by virtue of him and politics and Colin Kaepernick, it became a much more political book than I thought. But, yeah, no, it's good to be back in my day job. It actually, it feels, it's almost, I wouldn't say it's a break from football because football is still kind of recreation for me, but it feels like where I should be right now.
Well, full disclosure, you're a Patriot fan, so, every year is a good year for you. I don't know what they did to cheat last year, but we'll figure it out in a few years, as I pointed out before.
Did something.
Yeah, but from the football side of things and the political side of things, Robert Kraft has not had a good year since we got together, right?
No, he has not.
Stephen Ross, I'm going down to Miami to an empty stadium and a tank job, and he's holding fundraisers in Mar-a-Lago. It is amazing now when I see these guys, Jerry Jones, I see who's on Team Red Hat and who's on Team Freedom. I try to figure that out, Yeah,
I mean, that's the world we're living in. I mean, it's unfortunate on some levels, but on the other hand, I think the nature of politics today, I mean, you don't really have a choice. I mean, it used to be where you could say, okay, that's politics, that's a partisan disagreement. There are Democrats and Republicans, and, basically we're debating a few, basic principles, but that's it. But this sort of takes it out a lot more. I mean, it gets a lot more personal. You have... look, you just sort of have to know where someone stands on these things. I mean, people are making some pretty big and pretty sweeping value judgments about those who are on Team Blue or Team Red, what have you, depending on your perspective. And it feels pretty hard to escape these days. And sports, I think, is no different from anything else in life.
Well, I had Dick Cass on last week as part of our Baltimore Positive. We sat with him for an hour. Sports has been sucked up into the vortex big time and bigly. And, if the Orange Con Man opens his phone this weekend and decides to, I don't know, anyone, in the NFL, which would be right around 3 to, we're about to see that time because it's that season, right? And this is what this clown eats off of. And we're now, 14 months out on an election that's going to, really be a sweeping value judgment, I think, on all of us who carry American passports and come and go and believe what we thought we believed until now. You're out on the Biden thing, and and look, we'll talk big game, but the Biden thing that you had the number one red piece at New York Times this week just on Joe Biden and where he is as a great hope in all of this. The political season here is going to be a lot more interesting than the football season to me, especially once we get to next year, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, this is real life and real stakes and higher stakes. And what's interesting is, I mean, Donald Trump, what does he love more than anything? Reality TV and spectacle. And pretty much for much of his life, I mean, he was always envious of the NFL because that is a great entertainment medium, obviously, and it's a big spectacle. And he wanted in, and the owners didn't let him in. And no, so he decided that politics would become a bigger spectacle, and because of him, it sort of became that. But it would not surprise me at all, and I'm sure it wouldn't surprise you or anyone listening here if Donald Trump decided sometime between now and the opening weekend of the season, which is coming up. To say, okay, maybe I'm going to take on, say, Kenny Stills or something, or one of the, Eric Reed, a couple of the players who are still kneeling, and let me pick a fight with them, and his base would be all ginned up, and the NFL wouldn't know what to do, and look, all of a sudden, football becomes a political story again, and Donald Trump is in the middle of this, and that's where he wants to be, not just this story, but every story. So look, I could see it happening. He knows how to get attention. He's good at it, and he certainly has the bully pulpit to do it.
Big Game is the book, paperback now, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, there's a new cover and everything. It's like the Last Supper, and you got Colin Kaepernick's on there, and Tom Brady, and Jerry Jones, and Roger Goodell, and who's the fifth? Wait a minute. There is Donald Trump is on there. Hot Fudge Sundae. It's a bizarre cover, but I like it. The art people at Penguin put it together, and we talked about actually doing it for the hardcover, but it looked a little out there. But I figured, what the heck, we'll be a little avant-garde here.
Well, I mean, you had no problem, mixing and mingling, going from a plane in Washington to sit next to Tom Brady to come back and writing for the New York Times while you're moonlighting on this book while this guy was getting elected, quite frankly. Now you're back into this thing, and I guess it is a fascinating study of where the money comes from for me when I see who's funding whom and why and how. And the Kaepernick thing stands as this modern-day blackballing that, look, we're all going to tune the games in this week, right? We're all okay with it. We're complicit with it. Jay-Z's even signed on to make a couple of $100 million out of this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and people, I do think that the NFL has engendered all kinds of bad will over the last few years, both on the left and on the right. And again, I think that generally doesn't matter as far as people's willingness to turn on the TV or buy tickets to their teams because they love them. And football, look, it's an incredibly enduring sport. But I was sort of struck by. I do think the Stephen Ross, Kenny Stills, Donald Trump story of a couple weeks ago was very interesting because obviously Stephen Ross is not the first Donald Trump supporter. Or the first, donor to Donald Trump or someone who's, been very, very publicly identified with him. Robert Kraft has been, Jerry Jones has been, Dan Snyder has been, I think 7 owners donated $1 million to his inaugural fund. But this takes it to another level. And Steve Ross, who is a classic owner who wants to have it all ways. He wants to be like a big civil rights advocate, and he wants to, he thinks he's all woke and everything. But I don't know. Look, I think any exposure on who the owners are, who's paying for the league, who's owning these teams, is a real eye opener. And that's what I tried to do in Big Game. I wanted to really sort of uncover this world a little bit. But look,
that's why you drank all night with Jerry Jones and fell off the bus. I read the book.
I did. That was not my greatest moment, but I was very transparent about it. I did nothing to advance the dignity of my career. Let's put it that way. But that's a deep chapter. You got to read like 25 chapters to get to that. But,
well, at least it's not fake news. And on the journalism side of having people thrown out of the White House, and Brian Karem's a guest of mine from time to time, and a neighbor, and in a rock and roll band. So and he's been jailed for being a journalist. So I appreciate all of that. But what's going on to journalism and journalists, and the NFL is really no exception to that as well. Where you're one of the few people. Your book's a little bit of a pariah. Anytime I bring it up, it smells funny, and oh my God, we got to fumigate it. And all I think is, I was in a lot of the rooms you were in. It's all the truth, and that's probably why I loved it so much.
Yeah, I take that as a great badge of honor, to be honest, Nestor. I think I wrote a similar book called This Town on Washington about 5 years ago, and it smelled. There was no question. It was not the official story that a lot of congressional offices and Senate offices and White Houses or even media circles wanted me to write. And I think people appreciate people writing unofficial stories. I don't care about being invited to Roger Goodell's Super Bowl party next year. Part of it is that this isn't my day job. I'm not I don't rely on any teams or any PR people or commissioners for me to do my job. But
Roger's wife liked you, though. You maybe
she seemed to. I don't know if she does anymore.
Okay, fair enough.
But I do like her. I'm a total fan of hers. I like her a lot better than I like her husband. I don't mind being dangerous to the NFL. I don't mind being dangerous to any politician. I think it's part of how we do our job, and I think that we always have to be mindful of not getting too comfortable in what we do. And believe me, it's not, it's always more fun to make friends in this business, but if you're making friends in this business, you're probably not doing that great a job.
Mark Leibovich wrote Big Game, The NFL in Dangerous Times. It's now out in paperback. I'm holding the hardback, which is a really boring cover. Apparently the cover of the paperback. I should probably Google that on my phone and hold that up and say, I will absolutely do that. Onto the field and where the game is and where media is. Look, I'm up in Baltimore. We're trying to save the baseball team, Mark. After building Camden Yards, the owner has come in here and used it as an ATM. I know you're a sports fan. I mean, one of the biggest scumbags in the history of scumbag sports owners, and that's saying something because I'm going to Miami this week, and I know what the Marlins owner did down there. We're in a modern day where 30 years ago, our city was all Pollyanna about we lost our football team. We need to go steal another one. We're going to build a baseball stadium.
Right.
It's going to be the greatest baseball stadium. We're going to have a warehouse. It's going to invigorate. And it did for 5 minutes until some scumbag bought it, wrecked it. In the last 25 years, my city has struggled because of this. Downtown has struggled because of this. We have other, clearly, off-the-field crime, education. A lot of, political issues here where, journalists have been dangerous to our mayors in exposing mayors with $800,000 payoffs with fake books. We got a mess here, but sports is in the middle of it because in my town, Mark, 30 years ago, we decided sports was going to be what we were known for. We were going to have stadia. We were going to have teams. We were going to win championships. We were going to have parades. We were going to have Cal Ripkins. We were going to have heroes and statues and Ray Lewis's. And I don't, now I'm 50 and I see what my condo's worth and I see what the tax, and I look at this as a journalist, as a fan, as a PSL holder, as a guy whose last name is Aparicio. Sports is the reason I'm here. I've learned a lot. It's quite a toxic mix, and it's almost reminiscent of the stuff I see with Olympics, where they say we're going to bring the Olympics to Rio, bring the Olympics to Athens, and it's going to save the world, and it doesn't, does it?
Yeah, it never does. Never does. I mean, the thing about Baltimore is, Baltimore's a special city. I mean, I have never lived there. I haven't spent that much time there, but as a sports fan, the Baltimore Orioles had a very, very sort of special and unique relationship, certainly with the city and to baseball in general. I mean, it was a great, great baseball town. Camden Yards was a huge triumph. I mean, it was seen as a triumph around the sports world, and I always loved, even though I live in D.C., I love going to Baltimore games or Orioles games, and I even love going to Memorial Stadium. And just because I'm an American League fan and the Red Sox come in, 8 times a year, 9 times a year, and I know our fans are terrible, but I try to be a good example of that. Look, the Baltimore Colts are like that. I don't think, other than maybe the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think there was a greater and more kind of genuine love affair between a city and a team than Baltimore and the Colts back in the early 50s and 60s, and I think them leaving was one of the great calamities in NFL history, and maybe I would say one of the 3 or 4 darkest episodes of the league over the last few decades. But look, I think the Orioles right now, like you said, it's a complete fiasco. I think a big part of the problem is baseball in general. I think baseball's in big trouble, but look, I think a successful Baltimore Orioles franchise right now could do wonders, especially given, how beloved the stadium still is and where it's located and so forth. So, look, I'm speaking as an outsider here, but I do take your point that sports can be kind of an overrated savior to a community, but I also wouldn't underestimate it either, especially in the case of a place like Baltimore.
Brings people together, no doubt about it. Hey, I found what a cover. Can I trade my cover in? Can I take the cover off the hardback and you send me the paperback in exchange for this? The paperback cover has a Last Supper appeal to it. It's probably
it is the Last Supper.
Probably sacrilegious in some fronts somewhere. Yes.
Yeah.
But Tom Brady's playing the role of Jesus, huh?
I guess so. Yeah. No. I kind of rely on although he is holding up a deflated football, so I'm sure we'll get all kinds of heat in New England when I start talking about this book back.
It looked more like a turkey at Thanksgiving, but maybe that's just a football reference.
But I know, look, it's different. I want the cover of the book to scream, this book is different, and it's fun. But I'll totally send you a copy. I can get you that in the mail, whenever you need it.
All right, man. Well, always a pleasure to visit with you. I would not be, for me, it wouldn't be full and complete if I didn't attack this Biden piece with you, at least for a minute, because, you're on CNN, MSN, all weekend long. Does Joe Biden really want to be president, I guess, is something that, you took a hard look at. I think one thing we know, there were 20 other people in the days who really wanted to be president and saw it as all new and fresh and shiny and an object. And here's a guy that sat there for 8 years. He would have a different look at it in the same way that some kid comes in and says they want to cover politics and write books about the NFL, and in your shoes, and you'd be a little jaded in the way of me doing radio for 30 years, a little jaded. But all that being said, it better be somebody. I mean, it better not be this guy. That's, and most of the sane of us who get out and travel a little bit and have an education understand that this isn't a good way for our country to be going. And if Joe Biden is the savior, I mean, it's almost like the Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, let's keep them all alive. You know what I mean?
Well, look, I certainly, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, the reason I wrote this story is that there is a kind of a consistent sense around Vice President Biden over the last few months that he really seems to. I'm not sure his heart's really in this. And look, why should it be? The guy lost his son. The guy's 76 years old. He's run twice. He had a really, really good career. He's got the love of his family, the love of a lot of people, especially in the Democratic Party. He's got some money for the first time in his life. And, what does he need this for? And look, he's come off the sidelines. I don't know if he thinks he's a savior. I know a lot of people want him to run, and good for him. And I think that he's got obviously a really solid shot of winning not only the nomination but the presidency. So I mean, all of that, basically the answer to the why Joe Biden question is why not Joe Biden. But I also think that it helps when you have a higher purpose around your candidacy. I mean, if you were to talk to Elizabeth Warren supporters, they would immediately say, "Oh yeah, well she's running to fix a corrupt political system, especially at the hands of moneyed interest." I mean, Bernie Sanders has heard his rap for years. It helps to have I know why I'm doing this, other than I'm doing this because Donald Trump is so bad. And again, that might be reason enough, and it certainly is reason for a lot of Democrats.
That's why I'm doing Baltimore Positive, to be honest with you. I mean, it's changed my life and my direction and my conversation, as well as my wife's illness and having leukemia, all in my late 40s.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would be on the radio having some hotshot, cool political guy who wrote a football book and be talking about something stupid like politics with him. But when you're 50 and you see what it's done to your city and you see what poor decisions and really, really just terrible leadership at every level and how it's leveled your community. I mean, as Springsteen would say, it brought a death to my hometown, poor leadership, that you really need to value good leadership. And when I go to places where they fixed places or made them better, Detroit, Cleveland, Nashville, Charlotte, I get off the plane in a lot of places, and places get made better, but they only get made better when someone not like Donald Trump is running them.
Yeah, and you know what? The success of the Charlotte Hornets or the Detroit Lions doesn't generally have a lot to do with it either. I mean,
sure.
I agree. No, I think, look, if there is one big takeaway from this time, and if there's one thing that gives me hope, and I speak, as a citizen of the country, and obviously as someone who's in politics, and in sports, but I mean, mostly politics, it's that I think a lot more people care. I mean, whether they care about the right things or the wrong things, there is a higher level of caring and investment and awareness than there was before. And I think that only can be positive. Now, obviously, a lot of this caring is uninformed. I mean, it's informed by, bad internet habits or bad news gathering habits or believing people who are lying to you. But
in general, if you follow Kurt Schilling, I probably am not going to be following you. Yes.
You know what? I mean, and again, it's a different conversation about, how divided our country is and how kind of ghettoized everyone is in their information neighborhoods. But look, I think for the most part, I know a lot of people in my business, and I'm sure you do in your business, and who just care a lot more, who see much higher stakes around the political decisions that we're making and voting and organizing and community stuff. So I think that ultimately can be a clarifying moment for the country. But again, we're kind of a long way from any kind of clarity, I think.
Well, the whole world's having that conversation right now. When I was younger, I would fly to Venezuela. I went to Cuba on the baseball trip 30 years ago, traveling through Europe and different places. I was always shocked at how often people would be talking politics. And even as an American, I'd sit down in a restaurant in Stockholm, Sweden, and somebody would talk politics with me, probably because they didn't care about baseball, right? Or, whatever was on television or whatever. But that conversation has clearly come to our shores now, right?
I think that's right. I mean, politics, I think, especially in smaller countries, and most countries are smaller than the U.S., I mean, politics is a lot closer to the bone, right? And I think politics right now in America feels a lot closer to the bone, and that it's affecting a lot of people that we know, whether it's the immigrant community, whether it's whether it's people who are worried about sending their kids to school because of mass shootings or what have you. I mean, politics seems like it has, as I guess to paraphrase Springsteen, has come home a little bit, and that's sort of where we are right now.
Well, come on up for the rising of the big game, the paperback edition. Mark Leibovich joining us here from Washington, D.C. That smell is not him. It's just the air around him. And good luck. I hope they don't take your press pass away, and I got a good lawyer if you need one. How about that?
Thanks, man. I might have to take you up on that.
Well, when you come up to Baltimore, for the Tom Brady game on Monday night in early November, you will not eat a tourist crab cake, okay?
No, I probably won't. I don't think I will. I'll have a taster first.
We'll see you soon. Keep it straight, man. Keep writing great stuff. Mark Leibovich wrote the book Big Game, the NFL in Dangerous Times. I'm holding the hardback cover. The paperback cover is a far more interesting artistic display with The Last Supper. So you can have a hardback, paperback, either way. The best football book I've read this century. So, and I don't say that to all the guests, but it was a great book. So if you want to know how the game is played, go play that game. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and anywhere books are sold on the internet. We have a new morning newspaper. Please subscribe to that. New front of our website with new stuff. All the Baltimore Positive stuff up. The video, the audio, all out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault for you. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.